Thank you to all who are in our meeting today. My name is Jonathan Lickstein. I'm the managing broker from LoKation Real Estate. And today I'd like to welcome David Byck, otherwise known as the Florida tax guy. David moved to Florida in 2003. He lives in Wellington with his wife, Leslie, and 2 daughters. He originally went into real estate, but got back out from taking his license because he saw a need for realtors needing help with tax strategies and filings. So he decided to go back into accounting, but more specifically for realtors. What's really interesting, David is part of an exclusive group of 150 CPAs from around the country that are speaking directly with the SBA. So what you're getting here today is firsthand knowledge direct from the source. David is a federally licensed agent with the IRS, and is also a certified tax resolution specialist. So we're very honored and pleased to have David here with us to be able to share some knowledge about where we are and what you can do. So David, thank you very much for being here with us, and it's all yours.
Jonathan, thank you. I appreciate it, and welcome everybody. Hope everyone is staying socially distant from each other. That's why I'm doing a Zoom meeting here. The topic, as you're probably aware, is taxes and finance during COVID-19. This is a very confusing topic for a lot of people, including myself. It took a while to really grasp what these laws that were just passed in legislation through Congress was about in the stimulus package and how it affects small businesses like yourself. So we're going to go into some details, a little bit of detail. I'm going to go over exactly how this whole thing works, okay? Again, these are just bullet points. I'm going to be doing a lot of speaking over this to explain more details. But, we'll start from something that's a little more basic, and then we'll get into the details and the nitty-gritty. Initially, planning for finance has never been more important right now, as a lot of people are not receiving the income they're currently used to, or receiving no income at all. So planning your finances accordingly is of utmost importance. As a realtor, first and foremost, you can apply for unemployment. They've opened it up to 1099 agents or 1099 employees or 1099 contractors who are self-employed. Getting onto the unemployment website has not been so easy, according to what I've been hearing, but it's something that you can apply for. That's not my focus. My focus is on the business side of things, so I'll go into a little more details. One piece of advice I have for anybody here: if you have rent, if you have car payments, if you have a mortgage, you should definitely be asking for a deferral of payments if you don't have the funds to pay, especially. Even if you do, but you're concerned that your funds are going to be dwindling quickly, ask for that deferral. And that's sort of what I'm talking about here, including credit cards. Because right now, the federal government is pretty much telling people to do this because they know times are tight. Money is not flowing the way it's supposed to be flowing. And the banks, you know what? They know what's going on. And deferrals will be happening, and they already are. And I promise you the banks will be fine. They're going to get bailed out. But let's go into the whole idea of this. Now, this is called the EIDL, which is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and the PPP, Paycheck Protection Program. These are the 2 main stimulus packages that the federal government has passed for small business. Now, small business means it's a company with 500 or less employees. So before we get started and go into these details, let's explain a small business in association with realtors. Everyone here is a business owner, regardless of how your realtor business is structured. Whether you're a PA or an LLC or a 1099 is made out to your personal name, you are a business owner. Now is more important than ever to understand how you file and how your business is structured, because you're going to need to know that when and if you apply. For all my clients, I am urging them to apply for both the EIDL and the PPP, which stands again for Paycheck Protection Program. And the main reason I'm requesting or suggesting that they apply is twofold. Number one, this is a very uncertain time. We have no idea how long this quarantine is going to last, how long the issue of not being able to make money is going to last. And I have a lot of clients who are certainly concerned that, well, I don't want to take on a loan. And my argument to that is, look, I understand that debt is scary at times. And don't get me wrong, the EIDL is a loan. It stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan. However, up to $10,000 initially would be considered a grant. Up to 10,000, not 10,000, but up to. So even if you get the 10,000 or less of a grant, and you don't qualify for the EIDL, you can still keep that money. That money does have to be used for operating expenses of your business. You can't take it and plan a vacation. Not that you go anywhere now, but you got the idea. Now, there's going to be a lot of moving parts to applying for an EIDL. Initially, it's easy. The SBA made it fairly easy to apply, which I'll go over that later. Then the second piece is the Paycheck Protection Program. Okay? The PPP is strictly used, 75% of the money has to be used to pay for employee salaries. Now, you're probably asking yourself, well, I'm a 1099 independent contractor. I work for myself, and I have no other employees. Okay, I understand that. Even if you're an S Corp or a PA, paying yourself as an employee, if you're taking a salary, which you should be, either way, you're an employee. If you're a self-employed person, filing as a Schedule C, which means you're filing your business or your real estate business tax return inside your personal, you're considered self-employed, which means you are an employee. Okay? You are entitled to file the PPP. PPP loans, how they calculate them is they want to take your annual average monthly revenue. So let's explain what that means. For a Schedule C, what that means, if Schedule C means that's the tax filing you're filing, so I won't go too fast, but if you receive a 1099 in your name or an LLC name, but you filed a Schedule C, your average monthly payroll, you'd have to look at your 2019 tax return, okay? On your Schedule C, you're going to see your income, which is on your 1099, and then your various expenses. The difference is your profit. Your profit up to $100,000 would qualify for calculating your PPP benefit. So let's say your profit is $50,000. You would take $50,000 divided by 12. Okay? So let's do that fast just to see what that number is. I should be able to do it in my head, but I'm sort of burnt out right now. Let me just find my calculator. Where's my phone?
4167.
Thank you. Sorry. So 4167 times 2.5. Okay. So that's what you'd be able to apply for and be able to obtain as a PPP loan. Now, what's interesting about a PPP loan is they're forgivable as long as they're used appropriately. What does that mean? That means you have to pay yourself. Not a bad gig. So you are a business under 500 people. You are employed. You're employed by yourself, but you're employed. So they want you to take that money, and over 8 weeks, that's income that you're showing on your business, which in turn, there's no expense against. And therefore, it's considered profit, which you're going to pay self-employment tax on. But it's income that you're receiving. So you're in essence paying yourself on your Schedule C, if that makes sense to you. So yes, you'd have to include that in your income. Now, as long as we can make proof that you are paying yourself, we have to prove that. We have to document that, which is very important if you want to get the loan forgiveness. As long as we can prove that, which basically means writing your checks from your business account to your personal account. assuming you have two separate accounts. If you have one account, maybe you move it from, say, checking to savings or so forth, so on. That's a case-by-case basis. The most important thing is we have to show that you're paying yourself. If you have an outside area where you work and you're paying rent for an office, we can certainly use a portion of this for rent. But remember, 75% has to go towards paying yourself. If you have other employees, that's a different story. You have to pay them as well. Most people, that's not the case, but I'm happy. We'll speak after about anybody who is in that situation.
I do have two questions for you, Dave.
Yeah, sure.
One question that came is profit the same as adjusted gross income?
Okay. No. So for adjusted gross income, that's on your 1040. And that's not where you're looking. Where you want to look is something called a Schedule C. Again, that's if you're filing your real estate business return on your personal tax return, you're filing something called a Schedule C. On your Schedule C is where you find your profit. Now, many people have not done 2019 taxes yet. If that's the case for you, you need to create a profit and loss statement, which is why we're so busy, because we're trying to help people do that. But obviously, you know, we have limited staff to be able to help people create profit and loss statements in this case. Your profit and loss statement is your income from your 1099s minus the various expenses you've incurred. So it's pretty much what you would file your Schedule C on without actually creating the Schedule C and have it filed. We also need 2018 Schedule C as well. That's how that would work. And then we can calculate.
Next question. I've got another question for you. What if you took distributions but not a regular paycheck?
Okay, is that person an S Corp? I'm assuming they are. And, you know,
Assuming they are.
Unfortunately, as you know, when I do all my presentations for KCO, and I explain to people that when they become a PA, they are required to take a salary. You know, unless they're not making any money. If you're taking a distribution,
I'm not aware if she's filing as an S Corp. She did state that she's a PA, so I'm not sure if she does.
Yeah, she's a PA. She's filing as an S Corp. If there's no salary, there's no PPP. They can still apply for EIDL, but PPP is gone.
Is this PPP based on 2019 only, or is it the last 18 months?
No. So how PPP is working, and again, this is a contention, which is strange because every bank is showing it differently on their applications. But what I've been told by SBA is at least the initial application, we should be using the 2019 payroll or the 2019 profit from a Schedule C. If they don't have payroll because they're not on W-2, obviously. So
okay,
now
so there's another, go ahead.
They may recalculate that and say, okay, we want to see your profit and loss for 2020 as well. You know, so that may come into play. At the end of the day, there's three parts to the PPP that are extremely important, and they can't be done without each other. Part one is the application itself. Part two is creating a distribution plan so you actually know how that money needs to be spent. You got to follow the letter of that law. Part three is applying to the bank for the forgiveness of the loan. And that's going to require documentation to prove how the money was spent. You know, it's of utmost important, especially if you're getting $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. If you have the chance to have a totally forgivable loan, which means you don't owe anything, based on the fact that you just follow the rules, you need to do it. There are harsh penalties if you don't follow these rules as well. So we want to make sure that it's done correctly because the banks will be looking at them.
I believe you'll talk about this again later on, but one question was, so the only downside is that we'll be taxed on this income, right? And we will not have to pay it back in another form. Is that correct?
Again, so think of it this way. If a loan is forgiven, it becomes income. That's correct. Now, they haven't given us any guidelines if it'll be taxed a different way. I don't know that yet. but it's pretty much free money, right? If it's done correctly. You can't take it and use it for a vacation fund. You can't pay off your bills with a PPP. It's only meant for payroll, or possibly if you have an outside office and you need rent, paying your rent. If you have paying like internet, electric, things like that in your outside office. When it comes to home office expenses, it becomes a little more gray area. If I was going to do anything, I would say follow that rule of percentage of your house size versus the whole house, and that percentage you can pay the mortgage interest for, or your percentage of your rent, percentage of your utilities, things of that nature. But I wouldn't pay the whole thing off, because obviously your whole house is not used for business. So
does the PPP apply if you're an independent contractor but not incorporated as an LLC or PA?
100%. So as I was saying before, if you're an independent contractor being paid to your name, you're filing as a Schedule C. So a Schedule C is on your 1040 tax return. It's one of the forms inside of it. And that's the form that we're basing everything on. If a 2019 Schedule C has not been filed yet, we will need a profit and loss showing your 1099 income minus your business-related expenses. And that profit and loss should mirror the 2019 Schedule C when it is filed. That's how this whole thing works here. The whole idea behind PPP is they want to get people money as quickly as they possibly can. The unemployment area is already so clogged that the states are having major problems pushing out unemployment. Most people I'm speaking with, they can't even get on the Florida unemployment site. It's been a disaster. This is a fast way of getting money, and it could be significant. So it's something that you definitely want to think about, and I strongly recommend it.
Now, if you are still doing business, but you're doing less business, a lower volume than before the virus, is this something that would still apply, or are you looking more on the EIDL?
Everyone should apply for both. Here's what they both say. They both say you are applying for these programs because of your uncertainty due to the COVID virus and the economy, due to economic uncertainty. Now, I don't know anybody who is certain about the economy. So I think this applies for everybody. This is not one of those disaster loans. Normally the disaster loans are meant for the tornadoes you had in Nashville, something along those lines, where you hit a small area. But here, everything stopped. So everyone pretty much qualifies, as long as you're either self-employed, which means you're also an independent contractor, or you own your own small business and you pay yourself or your other employee salaries. That's how the PPP works. Now, the PPP is accessed through banks only, not directly through the SBA. So you can't go to the SBA to apply for PPP. It has to go to be an SBA preferred banker. Now, you can go to a bank that you're currently working with or currently have an account with. Some of those banks the bigger ones are so jammed that some of them stop processing. Some of them are still, but extremely, extremely slow. It just depends on your relationship with that banker and how much you want to go through. The application process is pretty, it's pretty intense. Initially, they're going to be asking for, obviously, your monthly average annual income or average annual payroll. And then they're going to ask for 2.5 times that amount is the application you're applying for. They're going to ask a host of other questions regarding what you're using the money for. Once that's all done, at that point, that's stage 1 of the application. Stage 2 is providing necessary documentation. So that's going to be previous tax returns. It very well could be a profit and loss if 2019 is not completed. It may be a business or real estate license if required. And then it could be, if you have a business, you're gonna have to show your date the business had an article of incorporation or articles of organization established. And several other pieces to that puzzle as well, but I mean, those are the main ones, at least for the initial application. The bank that you send it to is going to now process that application and send you out the funds. That's your stage one. Your stage two is deciphering where the money goes, how you're spending it. You want to spend it in a certain formula. You have 8 weeks to do it. That's it. At the end of 8 weeks is the time when you're required to, not required to, but I don't see why you wouldn't, is apply for apply for loan forgiveness with the lender that you got the SBA loan from. So, 8 weeks doesn't sound like that much time, but if you're, again, let's say for ease of numbers, your profit is $100,000 in your Schedule C. Divide that by 12, you're looking at what, maybe $8,200. You multiply that by 2.5. That's a nice chunk of change that you're going to get. Even if your profit is $15,000, $20,000, okay, and you can get $2,500, $3,000, you take it. Uncertainty's tight, and everyone should have access to this funds. Any more questions with PPP so far?
I'm actually going to hold all the questions for the end and allow them and just run through one by one because they're flying in here, and I want to make sure you get through content. We can go back to all of the questions and where they apply as we get to the end.
Fair enough. Now, the second piece of the puzzle is something called the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. These were meant for usually areas like earthquakes, tornadoes. I've never seen them being used for a pandemic, but never seen a pandemic, so I guess that doesn't really matter. This is unique. This is the first one I've ever seen where they're going to give you up to $10,000 as a forgivable grant. Okay, you may apply for the grant, which is in essence starting the loan process, and you may get $2,000 and then hear back from the SBA that, sorry, you don't qualify to get the loan. Well, that $2,000 you received is considered a grant, and it's yours to keep. There's no attachments to it. One thing you need to know, and this is very, very important, once they open this up, a lot of people who aren't educated started running to the SBA website, and everyone's applying for this EIDL to get $10,000 with no intention of actually making an application for a loan, which is a big, big no-no. So when you go onto that website and you're requesting up to $10,000 grant, you're telling them that my business is in trouble, it needs money. Okay, and I'm sure that's true. But a lot of people have no interest in applying for a loan. They just want that up to $10,000 grant and leave. And, you have to remember, this is the SBA, a British division of U.S. government. If they find that you were trying to defraud them and you had no intention of trying to get a loan, they have attachments with the IRS and can take your money. So we have to make sure that if you apply for EIDL, you move forward with the loan application. The loan application will usually in about 2 or 3 weeks after you apply for the EIDL, and you may or may not get a portion of that grant, you're going to receive another email from SBA. And the things they're going to ask for normally are your most recent tax return. You're going to have a request for a 4506T, which allows them to pull your last tax return from the IRS to make sure you're not lying. They're probably going to ask for a statement of liabilities personally, as well as for the business, as well as a personal financial statement and a personal financial net worth statement. And they may ask for some other detailed information like a year-to-date balance sheet for your business, as well as a profit and loss for your business as well. So, there are things involved here, and they understand you're running a business and they expect to have business information. We are here to help our clients create all these things. So that's why we're so busy right now. Look, at the end of the day, we're doing the best we can. But you know, if you're not used to doing these kind of financial statements, it could be overwhelming. Let's go back to the EIDL and the program terms. Up to $200,000 in loan income requires no personal guarantee or no collateral. Most clients that I'm speaking with who are realtors are not going to get more than $200,000. So chances are you're not going to have any collateral on a loan, and there's no personal guarantee. So that means is that if your business goes under for any reason, you're off the hook. The loan term is 30-year at 3.75% interest rate. Now think about this to yourself. Where are you going to find a loan that's no collateral, which means non-recourse, no personal guarantee, and is 3.75% with a 30-year fixed payment with no payments required for a year? I mean, that's insane. Now, the SBA, again, has that documentation. You can use this money for any business operating expenses to keep your business moving, as well as paying yourself a salary as long as it's reasonable. It can be used towards payroll as well. So this is meant to keep your business going at a time when there's a crisis. Again, I know people hear the word debt and they get concerned, but my question or my comment is, during really uncertain times where we don't know what the future has in store, someone is putting a lifeline out to you, and you have the ability to take it. You have the ability to apply. What I don't want to happen is 5 months from now, 6 months from now, if we're still in this predicament and you have no access to capital, that's a major problem. So at least exhaust your sources and do the best you can so you can gain access. Best case scenario, you get an EIDL loan, everything goes back to normal, you pay it back. There's no prepayment penalty. Pay it back, no problem. I'm not going to lie to you, these are fairly complex. The EIDL application is fairly easy initially, but once they contact you via email, they're going to start requesting a whole bunch of documents. With my clients, if you ever fill out an EIDL application, you can choose a representative to represent you. That means they're able to speak to the SBA on your behalf. So I've been doing that for a lot of my clients. If you have an accountant, you may want to speak to them. If you want me to help you with that, we could talk after this meeting or via email or whatnot, phone. My information's right there. I have 2 videos I've created for my clients because I didn't have the bandwidth to speak to everybody face-to-face or over the phone, showing how to apply for both of these, which I'll give to Jeremy and Jonathan. And if you're interested, I'm sure they could share them with you. Obviously, it's my information, but it'll give you an insight of what you need to do. The PPP bank I've been using is a small bank in Minnesota, which I know it sounds strange because no one here is probably from Minnesota, including myself, but it's very hard to find a bank that is actually willing to speak to me on the phone and actually willing to say, yes, I got your application, we're good, and we're processing it. And that's important to me. I want to know I'm not just one little bitty number on a thing. So I'm putting my clients through there. So yes, the bank account will have to be opened, but that access to your money will be there, which is the most important thing. So that's the EIDL and PPP in a nutshell. I know I briefly grazed over it, but there's a lot of moving parts here. And I'm sure you guys have a ton of questions, and I'm happy to start answering them.
Great. I have lots of questions. Thank you very much, David, for the rundown. I'll start going through the questions one by one. And as I call your question, I will unmute your microphone. If you'd like to ask, feel free to speak. If you don't want to ask, just stay silent, and I'll go ahead and ask it for you. So first up, I have Ronald Hankey with his question. I'll read it for you. If you are an independent contractor, can you add your wife as a partner or employee because of the 100,000 earning cap for the PPP program?
Okay. So the answer is no. Let me explain why. For starters, the 1099 is going to be based on 2019. So she didn't earn income in 2019. You can't go backwards and show her that she was an employee after the fact. You can always add her as a subcontractor or as a W-2 employee in 2020, but it's not going to increase how much you would get.
All right, thanks.
That make sense?
Yep.
Okay, next I have Eleanor Caprone. Eleanor asked, if I filed as an S Corp and paid herself via a W-2, would she be using her W-2 salary to apply or as the business?
Okay, so you'd have to apply as the business. So she is the owner of the business and she's the president, or you could choose owner. But her only payroll is what the W-2/W-3 numbers are. That's what she'd use for qualification for the PPP. Now, one thing I want to go back on, I hope everyone can hear me okay? With the EIDL,
Yeah, you're good.
the EIDL is not about your, your salary and payroll. All they want to know is what your gross income was in 2019. Your gross income is your total commissions for that year. Okay, that's what they're looking for that. Nothing to do with payroll. Just to make sure everyone is aware of that. But yes, for a PA or an S corporation, the W-2 numbers is what will be needed. That's how they calculate what your PPP would be.
Does that answer your question, Eleanor?
So for the EIDL, I'm using my total commissions, which is whatever that is, which is a different amount. And then for the, what is it, PP?
Right. So
That
paycheck.
one I'm using my W-2.
Correct. Did you any other employees or is it just you?
Oh, that's a good thing. So if I have a transaction coordinator, I give her a 1099. I can't use her, right?
No, only W-2. Only W-2 employees.
Okay, so for the payroll protection, I use W-2, and that's that.
And for the EIDL, it's the gross income.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Sure.
Thank you, Eleanor. Next question, Michelle Harley. If you are in your first year of business and there was a loss, how does that apply or change things?
Well, if you have a loss, you cannot apply for the PPP unless you have a W-2. Unless you have a W-2 that you paid yourself. But if you're a 1099, you can't do that. Schedule C. You can still apply for the EIDL. They will pull your credit. They will pull your credit for the EIDL. That I'm telling you right now. There's no credit pull for the PPP. But for PPP, if you have a loss on a Schedule C, you will not qualify. Because it means there's no payroll payments being made.
Okay. Next, I've got Steve with his hand up. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, quick question. I'm a brand new agent from 2019 in August. I have had some income from that via my 1099, but for my I had a W-2 before that as well. I'm not really sure if I made too much profit. Can you help me figure that out? See if I can qualify?
Yeah, well, your W-2, that was, you weren't an employer, you were an employee, correct?
I was an employee for a pawn shop where I made probably like $30,000.
Yeah, so that's got nothing to do with this program. This is only for small business owners. So the only portion that you care about is your 1099.
Right.
So you'd have, I mean, did you follow your 2019 tax return yet?
Not yet.
So you would need to create a profit and loss statement, or the help of our group, we could probably do it for you. Which is, you know, your income that you've earned and a breakdown of your expenses to show what your profit would be. If you're profitable, you'd be able to apply for a PPP.
Yes,
You can still apply for EIDL regardless, but you need income. You need to show your gross income for that. Gross income meaning just 1099.
Yes, sir. Can you help me file for my 2019 taxes as well?
Yeah, I do a lot with realtors, so that's not a problem.
Perfect.
Hey, Steve, go ahead and reach out to him. His contact information's on the screen. I'm going to get to the next question.
Thank you.
This one's from Joanne Marcus. Just to confirm, if she deposits all commissions but does not pay herself from checking to savings, would she still qualify? And which one?
You know, I mean, again, they haven't given us great detail for a self-employed individual. But to play it safe, I would like to see the money go from the PPP, which will be deposited into her business account, to go from her business to her personal. So it shows that a profit has been taken.
To show the trail.
Yep.
Okay. Vivian Schlesinger. Vivian, you are being unmuted.
Yeah. Oh, can you hear me?
I can.
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Okay, I am a realtor, like self-employed, like independent contractor.
Mhm.
And I also have another business, and that is, that has the business established in the bank. But usually I deposit whatever commissions I get from real estate into that business. Is that okay, or should I open another business account for the real estate? I mean, if I
Yeah,
want,
because I mean, the problem is, well, first of all, your other business has a name, I'm assuming,
yes,
and the real estate income is coming to your name individually.
yes.
So, in theory, the bank shouldn't even be allowing you to deposit that money into that business.
Okay, but yeah, but if the other business is a sole proprietor, it's a self-employed too. It's an LLC. Supposedly everything goes through your social, right?
Well, does your LLC have a tax ID? Normally, if you create an LLC, you probably should have a tax ID number.
Yeah, it has a tax ID. Yes.
Right. So it should be a totally different animal. So no, you do not want the money going into there. It's got to go into a separate account for your sole proprietorship.
But could it go to a personal account with my social?
Yeah. Because you
Okay,
have no
so
infrastructure for your real estate business.
So that's what I'm doing because I I don't get so many commissions just to be a PA yet. I can.
No, I understand. So what would happen in this particular case, if you have a profit, or you're showing profitability on your Schedule C,
Mm-hmm.
the amount you get would go into your personal account because you're a sole proprietorship. You'd want to pay it. You want to show some kind of tracking to say that, okay, I've collected profit from it.
Okay. I didn't understand what you meant by Schedule C. This is not an S corporation. It has nothing to do with that, right?
Okay, no. S corporation files something called an 1120S. That's an S corporation tax return. If
Yes.
you are an independent contractor,
Mm-hmm.
on your personal tax return, you're required to include your 1099 income on something called a Schedule C.
Correct. Yeah, I'm doing that. But so, but
That's what I'm referring to.
right. Okay. So when you do your
Okay, I think
taxes, okay, thank you. I don't want to keep you with that.
Thanks,
But can you
thanks,
ask
Vivian.
what kind of help can you ask for this kind of business?
Yeah, I'm going to be sending out the links of what I suggest you do, and then
Okay.
it's up to you to, go about it.
I'll send you the follow-ups to anyone who registered for this meeting. We'll get a follow-up with the information included with it.
Yeah,
My
I didn't know if I could do a PPP or only the ADL for this kind of business or what.
Well,
should
for the
I
real
do?
estate business, it all depends on your profitability.
Yeah, if it's
So
not too.
if you got profit,
Mm-hmm.
then you could do a PPP. But the only way to know if you have profit is you need to know what your expenses are and your income is.
Yeah.
2019.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
why I tell everybody record keeping for realtors is so important. Because you need to understand what your
and
income
none
is.
of us really do that good of a job of it. So it's something we can all
I
improve
know,
on.
but here's the time where it's needed.
This is where it comes into play. I'm going to take my next question from Olga Roque. Olga, you are being unmuted.
Hi. My question is in reference to the EIDL loan. I have two questions. One is if I could pay myself as a salary if I get approved, although I'm a real estate agent also. I don't have an entity created. I just do the same thing as a lot of people do. I just deposit my commissions into my personal account. I don't have a separate account for my business. So my two questions are, one, if I could pay a salary, and second, to myself, which has never been done before. And the second is if I need a separate account in case for them to deposit in case that I receive the EIDL loan.
Okay. So let's go back for one thing. Remember, the EIDL loan has a lot more flexibility. not only can you use it for paying yourself, but you could also use it for any business operating expenses that you normally would have been able to cover, but now because of the coronavirus, you can't. PPP is strictly for payroll. Now, what that means is you're not paying yourself a salary because self-employed people can't take a W-2. However, you can take profits from the business, if that makes any sense to you. So you can pay yourself money, which will in turn be considered income without expenses against it. So you're pretty much paying yourself a profit. I know that's sort of confusing. That's how it's structured because there is no W-2 structure for an owner, self-employed owner. So, that's why I'm really telling people, try to keep 2 accounts. And, I always tell you, if you have a real estate business, you should have 1 account for that real estate business. And then a separate account for your personal expenses. So the whole idea is you're taking money from your real estate business and putting it to your personal as a payment to yourself. I would open a separate account, definitely.
Okay, so we got a question. This is from Chet Wakefield back from when you were discussing the PPP. Why would you multiply your monthly profit by 2.5 times?
Okay, so how the PPP structure works, okay, is this is, first of all, this is created to be a short-term stimulus package. They're hoping that our quarantining won't last more than 8 to 10 weeks. So how they've calculated this and how they figured it out is they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to, let's say you have an annual salary or your profit. Okay, your profit for the year was $50,000. Okay, $50,000 is that your income, your commission income minus your expenses. Now, to get your average monthly, you divide that by 12, and it's $4,166. Now, multiply by 2.5 gives you $10,416 you'd be entitled to. Okay, $10,416. They're expecting you to cover 8 weeks of payroll. Okay, so think of it this way: if you're at $4,166 a month, divided by 2, or divided by 4, right? Because that's per month. It's roughly $1,041 you're paying yourself each week. The remaining 2 weeks you're using for operating expenses like interest, rent, things of that nature, utilities, could be your internet expense. At the end of 8 weeks, we're going to apply for a loan forgiveness package, as long as it's used correctly. The 2.5 represents 10 weeks of the year.
Okay. Next question we have is from Stacy Pleen. Stacy, you're unmuted.
Hi.
Hi.
So I have a couple of questions that I've just been writing down as you've been going through this.
Sure.
I think you answered one of them. On the Schedule C, you're going to be using your net profit or loss number and dividing that by 12 times 2.5.
Right. Now, again, remember, the net profit and loss is strictly for the PPP, not the EIDL.
Got it.
Okay. So you take your, and if you have a loss, then it doesn't, you don't count. You can't do it.
Right. Okay. I didn't have a loss.
That means you paid no self-employment tax.
Correct. Then the other question I have is, we had deals as realtors in the pipeline that we're getting paid for in March and April of this year.
Yep.
My understanding is that after you get any one of these loans and you receive income, which I will because I have my commissions, then they reduce that from what you've actually received, or that doesn't become forgivable.
No, the forgivable program, which is with the PPP, is strictly based on payroll itself. As long as you continue paying your staff, which in your case is you're fine. It has nothing to do with future income earnings. They want you to stay in business.
Okay.
You're earning.
Okay. And then you had mentioned that on the EIDL, the credit score is pulled. Do you know what the minimum credit score for that is?
They did not tell us that, probably because they don't want people to know. So I can't tell you exactly what they're looking for credit-wise. I don't, want to tell you something and be wrong. So, and just because you may have a lower score doesn't mean you get denied. There's other factors in it too. I mean, they are
Okay,
going to look for profit and loss and things like that. There are other factors to it other than credit, but they did tell us that your credit would be pulled.
okay, and then I guess my last question is, my husband and I do real estate together. We file together, but I'm the only one that receives the 1099, so it all comes in my name.
Yep. So that means yes, you may work together, but as far as the IRS is concerned, you're the only one who's self-employed.
Okay. And then you don't have any information on the whole unemployment thing. I mean, if we do the EDIL and the PPP, can you also still do unemployment? And I guess I never got my other question answered, was what happens to that money that I've been receiving March and April, which is during this whole COVID thing?
Well, the money you're receiving now is income to you, and you can apply it towards your tax return when you do 2020.
Okay.
Remember, I can't speak about unemployment because every single state laws are different. I deal with 46 states, but what I can tell you is A, it's been very hard to apply for many, many people. B, you can do the EIDL and PPP, and once that money is gone, for the PPP especially, at that point, if we're still in a bad situation, at that point you could do unemployment. I have a strong belief it's going to be it's not going to take 8 weeks. It'll probably be a lot longer than that for this economy to come back. So, you can eventually apply for unemployment anyway. They don't want small business owners and their staff applying for unemployment. They're trying to bail them out so unemployment numbers go down. The whole reason for the stimulus package is to keep small businesses open and keep their payrolls going. So, they're not looking for people who are small businesses to take unemployment. Unemployment is really meant or supposed to be meant for W-2s or independent contractors who have no access to anything else. So, for example, I have a client who is he's an independent contractor and he shoots for ESPN. He does a lot of their game shooting and whatnot, if you will, the videoing and things like that. He's completely shut down because there's no more sports. Someone like that should definitely be on unemployment. But for you guys, if you're going out there, you're still having access to earn money, you may have a hard time getting it.
Okay. Moving on, we've got Karen Mitchell. I believe you addressed this, so it should be quick, but I'll unmute her just in case. For the EIDL, do you need taxes or profit and loss statement as well? I think you addressed that already.
Oh, yeah. I mean, EIDL is a full-blown loan. In other words, you've got to qualify. There's going to be an initial application process, which is pretty easy, but that's just, the pre-app, if you will. Once you do the pre-app, SBA will contact you. They're going to give you a list of items that they are going to want from you. You have to be ready with them. They also give you a list of items that they may want from you right after, and you have to be ready with them as well. The PPP is less. I mean, they still require a lot of documentation. Either way, but I think PPP is probably a little bit less documentation-wise than the EIDL.
Okay, and my other question was, which one do you recommend for realtors? So we can just ask that since Jonathan's unmuted.
Okay, well, at the end of the day, if you're a subcontractor, 1099, and you're filing in your own name, like you're being paid to your own name, before I can answer that question, you need to know if you're profitable or not. If in 2019 you made more income than you had expenses, you need to apply for both. You don't need to, but I would.
Okay.
If in turn,
yet, but okay.
It's about your file. We need a profit and loss statement.
Okay.
Now remember, if you didn't file 2018 and you're a late filer, which people do, unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult to get approved for either of these programs. and you won't get your stimulus check either. So I strongly suggest if you haven't filed 2018, you get on the ball ASAP.
No, I did 2018 already. I just haven't
Okay.
done 2019 as yet.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying in general, people to hear.
Mhm.
2019 is not due yet. So a profit and loss statement will suffice.
All right, got a next question. What if you draw a salary from the brokerage and also have additional income paid as a 1099? This one's from
Okay.
Jaime Flasterstein.
Okay, so the salary from the brokerage you can ignore for this particular purposes because you're not the employer or the owner of the brokerage. You're just an employee.
What if you are the owner of the brokerage?
Okay, well, that's a different story altogether. If you
That's
are the
the situation. That's why I'm asking.
Okay, so if you are the broker owner, which means you have either an S corp or an LLC, most likely.
S corp.
Okay, so at that point, you're going to be applying on behalf of the brokerage. Okay, on top of which, any W-2 employees you have, including yourself, we want to add them up and then find out what the total W-2s are for that year, 2019. Any W-2s above $100,000 are capped at $100,000. So is it just you or do you have other employees, W-2s working for you?
No, it's only me. The company reported loss.
Okay. So your W-2s could work for a PPP. The W-2s you pay yourself, and you can still file for an EIDL even though you have a loss.
Now, the money that was withdrawn as additional income was withdrawn as a capital distribution and to my personal account. Can that count?
No, distributions are not countable because no payroll tax is paid on them. They're not considered a salary. It's got to be W-2.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Clayton. What if you have two businesses? In one business, you are a realtor filing as a Schedule C under your own, and business two, you're a property manager under a separate LLC. Would you be filing separately or jointly?
No, you file them separately. Those are 4 applications, 2 EIDLs and 2 PPPs. Now, if there's profitability on both of them, you want to do PPPs as well on both of them. If they're not profitable and they're Schedule Cs or an LLC filed as a Schedule C, you need to know the profitability. But yeah, they'd be considered separate entities.
Okay. Great. The next one we have is, now with the application for the grant or loan, I assume that's for the EIDL. With regards to the cost of goods being a required field, if you put a 0 in it, or do you take your expenses and put that into that field?
No. Good question. Someone's already been on the application, apparently.
Yeah, that was Loretta. I'm going to unmute her in case you have a question with that.
Okay, so cost of goods are strictly that. If you're a realtor, you should have no cost of goods. Cost of goods is a top line expense, not even an expense. It's an expense you subtract from your total income to get your gross profit. Cost of goods is only if you're buying items to turn around and sell them. So for example, I have a gas station as a client. The cost of all their inventory, meaning all their chips and whatever else, plus the cost of the gasoline they purchase, those are things they're going to turn around and sell. Those are cost of goods. Realtors should have 0.
Okay, so when I tried to put the 0 in, it didn't take it.
Well, something's wrong because I've done many with 0s and there has not been a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. It was,
Thank you.
yeah.
Our next question is from Anna. Do you need to apply through the bank you bank with? For example, Wells Fargo told me they're not accepting anymore on the first day.
Yeah, unfortunately, the big banks are having a lot of problems because there's too many banks out there. In all honesty, I am steering all my clients to a small bank that I'm working with, mainly because A, you're not required to have a banking relationship with them currently, and B, I can actually contact them to get some information. So it's been very, very pleasant to deal with them in a crazy time like this. So no, you don't have to bank. Well, you know what? It's up to the bank law, bank rules. Like if I went to Chase right now and I don't have a Chase bank account, they're not going to work with me. However, there are other banks you can go to that may. I'm dealing with one currently right now.
Okay. Next, I was told the government guidelines, this is from Susan. I was told the government guidelines are you have to have a business account and a business credit card with that bank as well.
Okay, that's Bank of America, who's right now about to be in the middle of major class action suit because they tried to defraud their clients. They're the first ones who came out, and they would not allow anybody who didn't have a business checking account and a line of credit or credit card with them to apply, which is part of my French horseshit. Marco Rubio, after that, pretty much went on Twitter and totally blasted them. And they laxed their guidelines a little bit, so now you just need a business account.
Okay. I've got Patty Nocenti. You are unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, hi. Are both of these programs based on 2019 only? Because you had mentioned 2018. Do they look at that?
So, no, 2018, the only reason I'm mentioning 2018, there's two reasons to mention 2018, and only two. One, you had to have filed at least a 2018, even possibly get a stimulus check in the mail. That's that $1,200 per person and $500 per child. You may have read about.
Yes.
If you haven't filed at least 2018, you're disqualified.
Okay.
When it comes to PPP and EIDL, it's either 2019 or possibly part of 2019 and 2020. The banks, each bank is sort of differing because no one really knows because it's rolled out so quickly. According to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they're saying the 12 months preceding the loan or the application. So if you apply in April, in theory, it should be from April through March. It's 12 months, but it's too hard for people to calculate that. So most banks are telling them 2019.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, next question. Can you apply online or do you have to go into a bank?
No, the banks do not want you coming there, especially with the whole 6 feet apart and everything else. The only way you can apply is through online, and depending on what bank you're using, is going to be, how you do it. Yeah.
Okay. Next one. This could be a kind of a complex situation, so I'll unmute Carol Lizito. You're being unmuted. If she collects Social Security, has an annual RDM plus an annuity, would she still be eligible for EIDL?
As long as she has a business in operation, I don't see why not. Oh, and by the way, our RMDs are being exempted for this year.
Yeah, I've already taken mine.
Okay, well, I guess I got to you too late.
Yeah,
Perfect.
so I would be eligible for the EIDL.
Yeah, you have a business. You're working as a realtor. Are you making a profit?
No, not this past year. I work by referral only. So last year I didn't have anything really to speak of.
Did you have income? You need to have income to apply.
Yeah, I did have a small amount of income for last year.
You can apply for an EIDL.
Okay, thank you.
Can't guarantee it'll be accepted, but you can certainly apply.
Okay.
Great. Next question. Does the applying for the PPP or the EIDL affect qualifying for unemployment as an individual?
Again, I'm not really speaking on behalf of unemployment. Unemployment is a really odd, because this is the first time ever the government decided to let 1099s apply for unemployment. Normally, it's never been the case.
So would applying for any of these affect that, you think?
Again, I can't give you a yes or no answer in the fact that if you receive lending or loans, it doesn't mean you're employed. It doesn't mean you're making income. However, if you get a PPP, you are, because now you're paying yourself. So if it's me, if I'm applying for these loans or these deals, I want to apply for unemployment. Now, if for whatever reason my money runs out from these deals, then I would, if I had to, unless another stimulus wasn't passed.
Okay. These next two questions should be really simple, easy ones. Which PPP or EIDL do you suggest a realtor applies to, or is it both?
Both. If they have a profit of the PPP, or they're taking a W-2 from an S corp, then you apply for both. Otherwise, EIDL.
Okay. And if you have multiple businesses, treat them completely separate, and they can both apply for both.
As long as they meet those criteria, yes.
Okay. Pam has her hand up. Pam, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. You can go ask your question, Pam.
Okay, thanks. I have, I think, 3 of them. It might be backstepping a little bit, but I have a PA. I file a 1120S, and I take payroll.
Good. Okay.
Now I'm hearing you're including your net profit from your sub S.
No. The net profit is no. The net profit is only on Schedule C. Okay, let me explain. If you're a self-employed, right? Because if you're self-employed, the profit from a Schedule C is subject to self-employment tax. In other words, if you're self-employed and you're filing a Schedule C, you're paying payroll tax at 15% on all of your profits. If you're a 1120S S corp, you're only paying payroll tax on the salary portion.
Correct. Okay.
When it comes to PPP, only either your W-2 if you're an S corp, or your profit if you're a Schedule C count towards those calculations.
Okay. Now, does that also work for a rental property? Because that's not a Schedule C.
Yeah, it's separate. That's an EIDL, and it really depends on, more importantly, what your structure is, if you will. So, if you're a rental property, there's really no salaries involved there. It's strictly rental. So, you can apply for an EIDL if you're losing rental income.
Right. Okay. So you can do that, but not the PPP.
No.
All right, because I know the PPP covers your mortgage interest.
Right, but remember, PPP has to be either self-employment tax being paid or payroll tax. You're filing most likely with a rental property. There is none of those.
Okay, so that's for the rental. Okay, now my next question is, I saw a schedule where they break down all the income for you. They tell you to include all your employees' health insurance, vacation, personal time off. But it doesn't say whether or not you can include the employer's portion of the payroll taxes.
Nope.
That's not included.
As of what they're saying right now, is strictly your gross payroll.
Gross payroll.
So,
but they are allowing you their health insurance and benefit.
Correct. Health insurance is fine, as well as vacation pay if you're doing that. But it's mainly the gross payroll they're after, not the employer side.
Okay. Now, I did have 4 questions. There was something in there about, in the schedule, you're paying somebody over $100,000.
We're capped out at 100.
So you're capped out at 100,000.
So let's say you gave someone a W-2 for 140. For the PPP calculation, you have to use 100.
Okay, so they're not totally thrown out.
No, they're just capped at 100.
Okay.
Somebody making over 100,000 stops at 100,000.
Right. Correct.
Okay, so we don't totally toss them. Now, my other question is, some things that look like they wanted you to go March to March, and some things they wanted you to go on a calendar year.
Exactly, and that's what I'm telling you. Every bank is different. The letter of the law from the Chamber of Commerce is saying the year prior to the filing of the application, which would be April to March. Excuse me, May to April, I guess. But most of the banks don't have time to process this, so they're just asking for the 2019 numbers. They may turn around and ask for additional information after.
Right, and then I saw there's some other forms, additional information, and they say, like, what is your money going to be used for? And it doesn't tell you monthly for 2.5 months. So
you have 8 weeks for the PPP to use the money.
So I should put in those fields whatever the 8 months will be used for.
Well, I'm not sure what you're looking at, but you know, normally what happens is you're telling people,
Sorry.
one of your employees, you're telling people, you're telling the PPP or the bank that you're using payroll for the next 8 weeks. You're paying payroll out to cover your employees to keep them on staff. So you can't, you know, you got to spend the money. You got to, over the next 8 weeks, 75% or more of that money has to be used to payroll. Otherwise,
Okay.
It's not forgiven.
Next, this is a simple question. How long does it take to hear back from the SBA? What are they looking at with timelines to get a response?
That's a wonderful loaded question. So, you know, when you apply for EIDL, the initial $10,000 up to $10,000 grant and the actual loan application, for example, I had one that just came back. We applied on March, what was it, 22nd, March 20th. Okay. And they came back about 12 days later, and I'll read it to you verbatim. The SBA has received your, and this is for the EIDL. SBA received your business loan application number, blank, 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 for disaster coronavirus COVID-19 on March 20th. The electronic loan application process requires submission of certain documents, and here's what they say. A complete copy, including all schedules of the most recent federal income tax returns for the applicant business. Provide an explanation if it's not available. So if you don't have 19, you got to explain why. Request a 4506 tax transcript, so they're able to pull your tax returns, as well as 4506 transcript ability for anybody who's a 20% owner or more, which won't apply to you guys. You're all 100% for the most part. A list of current scheduled liabilities of all fixed debts. A personal financial statement completed and signed and dated by the applicant, explaining income and expenses personally as well as for the business. Any business guarantees. Complete copy of all schedules, most recent federal tax return. A profit and loss statement if you did not file your if you didn't file your business tax return for 2019. A current year to date profit and loss statement, and you may possibly be required to have monthly sales figures and a balance sheet. That was 15 days later, we got this. So they're way backed up in the EIDL. The PPP will be significantly faster, I'm told, mainly because it's going through different banks. And the banks are laying out the money, and the SBA is then paying them back. So there's a lot more, you know, logistics are a little easier, if you will. The bank that you apply through is where you have to open an account if you don't have one, which is not a big deal. It takes, you know, a minute or two. And then the money is deposited there where you use to pay your people. You pay your payroll.
Okay. This is a detailed question.
Yeah.
I am the broker owner of my firm. I am an LLC. I filed my 2019 Corp and have a Schedule C. Is there any kind of cap when applying if I filed my 2019 personal with my spouse? Is there a tax bracket cap or a joint income cap for the two of them?
No, IDL or PPP, there's no such thing as a cap. The only cap is you have to be under 500 employees. That's it.
Okay. Marla, did that address your question?
Yeah, when I talked to my accountant, he was like, well, I think maybe I'm confusing that with, I was jokingly about the stimulus check. I'm like, so who all gets the stimulus check? And he's like, well, if you make X amount.
Yeah, stimulus is different.
You don't get a stimulus check. And
So
pretty much
the stimulus check is based on your adjusted gross income for either 2018 or 2019, whichever you filed last. If you're married and above 150, it starts phasing out.
Right.
At 198, it's completely gone.
Right. So
it's got nothing to do with these business bailouts. Nothing at all.
Right, exactly. So the PPP has nothing to do with what our tax return looks like from 2019, anything like that.
They couldn't care about your personal tax return at all. It's strictly the business.
Gotcha. And then again, the only downside of the PPP is it's going to be taxed as income. It's just I'm collecting that now to cover over that.
Right.
time.
If it's forgiven, what they're telling us is if it's forgiven, And very likely, I mean, hopefully it's not, but it very likely will be considered income to you.
If it's forgiven.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm already assuming that it's going to be taxed as income, which is fine because
If you get money, you get money. You know, I'd rather get the money and worry about that.
Whether it was given to me, I still should have to pay taxes on it regardless. So I'm
correct. I mean that's how it works. Now again, maybe they change their mind and say nope, no problem, no taxes. I don't know, but up until now, that's my understanding.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Debbie Easton, go ahead. I'm having trouble unmuting you, actually. I'm going to go with another question while I work on that. One of our attendees, our participants, just filed paperwork for an LLC in March of this year. He's been in business for 35 years and always filed his taxes with a Schedule C. Could this be an issue, or how should he be filing for a PPP?
No, you want to file under your sole proprietorship because if the business wasn't around before 2/15, it does not qualify. So at the end of the day, the business was around in 19 anyway, so I would ask him to file under as a sole proprietor on Schedule C.
Ron, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Deb, you can go ahead. You're unmuted now.
Yes, thank you. Do you have to have made income in 2019 to apply for the EIDL?
That's a good question. They have not come out to us and told us about businesses that made no income. I don't have an answer to that. I'm going to guess probably. Not saying you can't show a loss. That's fine. You can show a loss. But if you have no 1099 income whatsoever, they may argue that the business wasn't a business.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, David, next question. This is an interesting one. You actually answered this earlier, but it's like an add-on to that. If you took distributions in 2019 from your business, are you able to go back, since you haven't filed taxes, and change how you did that as a W-2 instead of distributions for 2019?
In a normal world, the answer is yes. In a normal world, you could always amend the W-2. Okay? In this particular world, the cost of actually amending it and paying the additional payroll tax on more W-2s and paying the penalties or paying the payroll tax late, it's going to cost you more than what you got with the PPP. So I would say don't do it.
This is for filing 2019, so it hasn't been filed yet.
It doesn't matter. Payroll tax for 2019 was due by January 15th, 2020.
Kate, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to go with two more, and then all of the contact information for Dave is on the screen. Feel free to contact him directly. I'm going to go through two more questions, and then we'll cut it off here, and we'll let you out from lockdown.
I'm in lockdown for next month, probably.
Where can you find forms to do this application process if you would like to start it on your own?
If you want to start on your own, you can go to sba.gov. And from there, you'll see a thing that says COVID. And you go through that's the EIDL. If you want to do PPP on your own, you have to go to your bank. Or a bank. Find a bank that will take you.
Okay. Next, we have last question. Looking for a juicy one here. If you open an account at the bank that you're recommending in Minnesota, does it need to have a minimum deposit, minimum balance, or is it just go as you go?
Well, for starters, good question. For starters, the minimum loan amount you can get on a PPP, a forgivable loan, is $1,000. So if you have payroll or your profit is under, let's see the magic number. Hold on one second. I have to do a little algebra. Give me 1 second. Hold on. I apologize. Okay, let's see.
Algebra. You don't work with numbers that often, Dave.
Right. Okay. X times 2.5, x divided by 12 times 2.5 equals 1,000. All right, hold on. Let's see here. So if I do
you recommend somebody do this on their own, or do you recommend they go with someone who has some guidance, a financial advisor, a CPA, to help them walk through the process?
You know, I mean, again, I can only tell you from the basis of speaking to my clients, they would have, I mean, the EIDL application is not hard to fill out. The PPP, they have no idea what they're doing. The amount of questions they're asking, they're not comfortable answering them. And I get it, because you have to say that, you know, this is truthful, yada, yada, yada. And, you know, the EIDL, remember, is a pre-app. Once you answer the pre-app, that's when you get that email I just sent to you, or I just read to you, of all the things that you're going to need, and they're going to contact you requesting it. So my suggestion is, if you're working with an accountant that you trust and you believe is knowledgeable when it comes to the SBA programs, reach out to them. I don't think a financial advisor is necessarily qualified for this if they're not doing accounting, because this is mainly accounting stuff. If you want to try to do it on your own, that's completely up to you. There's no law that says you can't. But, you know, again, there's going to be a lot of preparation of work involved, and more importantly, understanding how to spend the money if it's a PPP, so you can, you know, qualify for the loan forgiveness. There's a lot of moving parts to this.
Okay. Much appreciated, Dave. Now, before we disconnect, I am unmuting everybody because I want to say thank you for you taking your time to do this. And just want to say, Dave, thank you very much. I'm sure everybody shares the same sentiment, but we appreciate you taking your time.
Dave, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I'll upload the recording and send out information that Dave provides to me. Thank you all for attending. And Dave, thank you for your time.
By the way, Jonathan.
Jonathan.